You are listening to Insights with Kathleen. Please join me while I share my insights and experiences with the hope to inspire you to look inside of yourself for the answers that you already have. As with all information we receive, take what speaks to you and leave the rest.
All right, so here we are again.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you doing?
How
you doing?
I'm doing okay, guys. I'm here. I'm thriving. I'm feeling delicious.
Oh, I'm glad that you're here. You're thriving and doing delicious.
Thank you. As you should, as we all should be doing.
Yeah. It's springtime here in the States, and it's just lovely.
It is. And I have a topic today.
You do? Oh, well, lay it on me, man. Don't hold back.
I just pressed the record and I was just like, yep, I'm going to say it. So my topic today, like a question I have is, how do you keep your heart open? And I know that's like very broad, I feel like maybe, but I know for me, I've had certain instances in the past. Why are you laughing? Is this funny to you? No. Wow.
No,
Sparing my bare soul.
I apologize.
Well, thank you, Kathleen, for that. I appreciate you. Anyway, basically what was happening, though, is I did have like friendships and stuff in the past. And, I would be vulnerable and open. And I don't know, it wouldn't always turn out in my favor, or they wouldn't validate my feelings, or the friendship wouldn't, always end for the best, in my opinion, at that point in time. So I guess as I'm going to this new university and I'm trying to like be more open with people, I actually had someone say to me, which was like a beautiful thing that she could deliver to me, is that, Sherry, I feel like you are like open, but you're like, you have a mini picket fence in front of you. So you're active and you're listening and you're involved, but you're just like, I don't know if I can get people that close, which was very, very true. And as I began in that little journey of that, I'm like, oh, why do I like keep my heart a little closed? And how can I keep it open? Not just in terms of relationship, but just in general.
Wow. Well, thank you for bringing that topic. That's pretty cool because having an open heart covers so many things in life.
It does, which I didn't know. Yeah.
And part of having that open heart is also trusting in oneself.
Right.
Right. Trusting in, I guess I want to back up a little bit here. So when you were first opening up on the topic and you were mentioning about how other friends didn't validate you.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to make sure we hit upon that just very quickly.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always nice to have a little validation or affirmation.
Right.
But I think as we build the trust in ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one that you might have to touch upon.
Yeah. So as we build on ourselves, and we've talked through many different episodes about self-love, about setting boundaries, about all of these other things, right?
Yeah.
And that's all a part. All of that kind of plays a part in this, in trusting of oneself, right?
Yes.
So as we're building this self-love, as we're building these healthy boundaries with ourselves and with others, that helps us to build a trust.
Yeah.
Which then helps us to also build upon that for self-validation. Because in this world, some of us may never find anybody to validate us.
Right.
In fact, it may be quite the opposite. Some of us may be in family situations where the family's really quick to put you down.
Right.
Or to kick you when you're down.
Yes. Unfortunately, yeah.
Yes. So where do you get that validation? Where do you get that fight? To stand up and say, you know what, damn the rest of you. Love you, but damn you. But just damning the behavior, not necessarily the soul, but
right.
But not losing you and building you, right? So when you're coming from those heavier situations, and some of them may be more traumatic, kind of like what we're stating here, and some of them may be a little more subtle,
right?
Where things are just kind of chaotic or unpredictable,
Right.
you know, and so that shakes our little foundation, and sometimes we don't feel so secure in us. And when we're not feeling secure in ourselves, we're not really feeling secure with those around us, and therefore we're not trusting.
Right. Right.
Right. And then we are still looking for a level of validation, but because, you know, things are a little shaky until we build that foundation within inside of ourselves and get comfortable with self-validating.
Right.
You know, it could be a very long road to suffering, if you will.
Right. Right.
And in order to have an open heart, you kind of need all of those things, right?
Right.
You need to kind of sort of trust in yourself.
Yes.
You need to sort of kind of trust in those around you.
Right.
And then, but the trusting in yourself is what's really important, because, you know, I have to trust that I have the insight or the intuition into, or the knowing into that person is safe for me to open up to.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's a very big one.
Right. And then our minds could play all kinds of games with us as we're moving forward, and we're trying to work through feeling safe.
Right.
Right. This is a really big topic.
No, it is. And I think for me, when I was, you know, going through like community college and stuff like that, you know, I was definitely still, I'm always working on myself, but I was, you know, in a different space then. And I think for me, the biggest thing was the boundaries piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had no boundaries with others or with myself. So whenever I would find people, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, they deserve to know the innermost parts of me. And I wouldn't really have that discernment to be like, maybe not this person, or maybe, and you know, then I didn't have that validation within myself as well.
Right.
Because if someone maybe was not giving me like the greatest advice that I need at the moment, I'm like, you know, doubting myself. I'm like, oh no, is this good advice, or should I take this? And I'm fighting in myself when I could have just been in my intuition, been like, you know what, I know me well enough to know that this advice doesn't resonate with me. But I didn't have that at the time.
Right. And sometimes, you know, and I've said this before, where do we learn to have relationships? Our very first introduction to having a relationship is with our parents.
Yes, it is.
You know, when a baby is, or guardian, whomever that may be, right? When a baby is really little, the baby communicates through cries.
Right.
Right? To say, hey, I'm uncomfortable in some way. And then it's up to that caregiver to decipher, all right, you know, what is it that this child needs?
Right.
And they provide it. So the baby's starting to relate there. First introduction to relationship. I cry, somebody comes and cares for me.
Right.
Right? Ooh, if I cry loud enough, I might actually get fed. Oh, I feel really uncomfortable right now, and things are wet and moist in places I don't want.
Right. Right.
You know, if I really scream, somebody will come take care of that. And
Right.
like, I feel comfortable now. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that first part of relating. And then as you grow, what experiences had the caretaker or parent had that's caring for us and teaching us? What was their upbringing? What kind of levels of trust, relationship, and open-heartedness do they come with?
Right.
Because that's what's being imposed upon you. And that's what our first exposure to it all is, right? And so I want to say that because, like, I know for you, there was messaging at home as you were growing up that you need to be this open with everybody.
Right. Like everyone deserves every piece of you, or you're being selfish if you don't.
Right. And that's not healthy. That's not true.
Right.
And you open yourself up for not only just ridicule, but manipulation.
Right.
And all of these other things that could be harmful. Also, because trust is a really big part of the open heart piece, right?
Yeah.
And the boundaries, and it's kind of like you can't pull one without the other, and they all kind of have this intertwinedness, kind of like nature, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Knocking off the balance of nature if
Right.
you pull out one thing, and then the rest of nature has to somehow make up for it.
Right.
Like a great example would be that if you get rid of foxes, or if you get rid of coyotes, or predator animals like that somewhere, then you get overran with deer, you get overran with other animals that these animals would have eaten.
Right.
Kind of the natural population control, if you will.
Yes.
Right? That circle of life.
circle.
That's circle. So it's kind of that same thing. So these concepts that we're talking about, it kind of is the same thing. You need them all in a healthier or healthy kind of way, right?
Right.
So this podcast is too short to really get into, all of it, but we'll kind of dive into a little bit of the open heart trusting piece.
Right.
And so when we grow our trust in ourselves, right, to trust that we do know what's okay for us.
Yes.
And we build that discernment, and of course that's after hopefully we've established some decent, healthy boundaries, right?
Right.
To say, all right, well, this person is not necessarily in my inner circle. This is more of an acquaintance. So they don't get to know all of my deepest secrets, but I could open my heart to them this much, right?
Right.
To say, hey, I can still have an open heart towards you, but you don't get to know all of my deepest secrets.
Right.
Right. And having an open heart, to me, it's like, it's not judging that other person.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's acknowledging that other person is a divine being in and of their own right.
Right.
They have free will that they have the right to exercise.
Yes.
Whether we agree with all of their choices or not.
Right.
But that's their experiment, their experience.
Yes.
And we can still receive them as a soul with an open heart.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that other person doesn't define who you are.
Ooh, say it again for the people in the back.
For the people in the back, that other person doesn't define who you are.
That's a big one for me.
And let's flip that around. You don't get to define who they are.
Yeah.
What?
That does take a lot of pressure off of both parties.
Yeah, one would hope, right? If only we could all think that way all the time, the world will be a better place. But that before I get too far off, the trust piece, though, too, in all of this is a level of communication. And you and I, we've had these conversations, too, where as you're building trust with someone, it's really important to be sure that what you are saying to them you really mean.
Right.
So like if somebody's asking about your feelings or checking in with your feelings, like, yeah, well, what do you think about blah, 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 blah? And if you're not open and honest.
Oh, that's
right.
Yes.
Then you're leading that relationship down a kind of a very crooked kind of path, if you will, which could only eventually at some point end in disaster.
Right.
You know, a mistrusting disaster.
Yes.
Because it's as we open up our hearts, right? As we're measuring, like, all right, here's this acquaintance coming in. I'm opening my heart to this person. I'm going to receive them in. Oh, I kind of resonate with them. Oh, they seem pretty cool. I kind of want to get to know them a little bit more. They're sharing some of them with me. Okay, well, you know what? I can share a little bit of me. And we play this game, or we have this dance where we're going back and forth and we're sharing information and feelings. And the thing is we're trusting the other person is being honest and open with us,
right,
about what they're really feeling.
Yes.
And it's in that exchange of trust and sharing of feelings, right, that a good relationship can evolve, and our hearts can open more.
There you go.
Our hearts open a little bit more, where we can then share more of us. But the thing is if one of the two parties are not being fully honest, and the receiving party feels that,
yes,
or starts to recognize that they're not really being honest, then the trust starts breaking down.
Right.
Which means then the heart starts closing. Right. So from what I'm hearing from some of your retelling of, like, when you were in the community college,
yes,
some of those peoples that you were around and had relationship with,
yes,
that they weren't really being fully honest, even though you were way out there with the heart wide open and sharing everything you possibly can.
Yeah.
You know, which in turn probably made you some kind of a target, because they didn't really earn it.
Right.
Not to say that everybody has to earn it, but but it should be, kind of like that ping pong game. Like, I'm serving it to you, you're serving it back. I'm hitting it to you, you're hitting it back. And it's kind of in equal measure.
Right.
Right. And it's reading those signs and going along the way. And it helps build that trust so that our hearts can open up.
Right. Right.
I do like that you said something to me today.
What did I say?
About your heart being wide open and how excited that you are that having a wide open heart did not necessarily mean it was just about relationships.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Why don't you say something more?
Okay, so I guess for me, I was telling you because we were discussing the podcast and, how to promote it and stuff. And I was like, oh, we should do some social media stuff. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to do that very soon. I'll let you guys know. But I guess the reason why I brought that up is because now I'm kind of coming into this chapter of my life with my heart open. And I realize it's kind of embracing the old but not getting tied down by it. So I guess for me, some of the old patterns that I would have is either in relationships, I would kind of like block myself off a lot and not tell people what I'm truly feeling. And that was the relationship standpoint. And I think for me, with our podcast, I had a podcast before and I promoted it so much that I stopped enjoying it as much. And I was scared. I was like, oh, if I promote it, I'm going to hate it again. But I guess when I was telling you that, I was kind of telling you the piece of like, okay, I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to be tied down by that. I realize I do want to promote this podcast, but the end goal is going to be different than before because I have a fuller perspective and my heart is open to trying it again or trying it a different way or new. So that was kind of like my little spiel and journey with that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, on so many levels, really.
Of course,
Thank
of course.
you. No, but I like the story because having an open heart isn't just necessarily always about relationships, much to your point.
Right.
It's about having an open heart for yourself, to be open to possibilities, to be open to flow of abundance.
Right.
Flow of love, flow of material things.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, sometimes we've all been very programmed to think that, to be a really good person, you have to be humble and poor. Like,
yes.
Who the frick said that?
I don't know who said
Because
that.
I'll tell you right now, Jesus Christ did not say that.
We're quoting Jesus, man. Go look it up in Proverbs something.
Have an open heart and give. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
But,
yeah.
You don't need to be poor to give.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So you don't need to be poor of heart.
Yes.
You don't need to be poor of stuff.
Right.
But how great is it to have this open heart towards other things, like not just like material things, but other joyful things that bring you joy and excitement.
Right.
Because you kind of do like the social media stuff, right?
I do.
You kind of love the thrill of certain activities around that.
Yes, because at school, I promote a podcast that I run with them. So I promote it on different platforms. So I already get paid to do this professionally. So I'm like, and I enjoy it. So I'm like, oh, why not do it for this?
Right. So because this brings you joy, this opens your heart even more. And then there's this beautiful ripple effect that just naturally happens. And because you're having joy and your heart is open, much like you said, it doesn't feel like work.
Right.
You're having fun. You're playing.
I am having fun and playing.
Yeah. So if we can, use that as like our measuring stick for where something is in our life, it can help us to weed through what's not serving us anymore.
Right.
Or to flag us on, this needs some attention.
Right.
Right. So look at how amazing
Ooh.
an open heart could be for us in helping to tool us and to help us along the road here. What do you think about that?
You're just looking at me because I'm smiling. It's great because that actually what you're saying helped me connect the dots a lot, because I always was like, I can't go on social media because when I did it before, I got depressed. But now that I'm doing it for something different that's not specifically promoting myself, I really enjoy it. And now I've been getting more opportunities to do so. And I guess now my heart's open enough to be like, you know what? I'll admit this. I actually really do like doing this, and I find a lot of joy doing that. So,
Well, and I think the difference too
yes.
is that the attachment piece, right? So when we have an open heart, there is no attachment.
Right. That's a huge one.
Right. So from what was, there was a level of attachment. You're doing that thinking that, oh, I have to do this so that I can get this result. So you had an attachment to a particular result.
Yes.
And what we're doing here is we, using our open heart and our very loving open heart, is we're offering information to those who want to receive it.
Right.
With the hopes that it's helpful to them.
Yes.
And then, of course, as we say in our tagline all the time, take what works for you, leave the rest, right?
Right.
And we're doing that for the joy, the soul joy of that.
Yes.
And so that puts a different, there's no attachment to what that outcome can be, because truly we love sharing the information. We have the information. We love having the conversation. I like your company.
You do?
I
Oh my
do.
goodness.
And so that brings us joy.
Right.
Right. Not that I mean to speak for you, but I am speaking for you, and you're welcome.
Thanks, man.
And you're welcome, man. So because that brings us joy, it brings a certain level of lightness. And again, there's no real attachment to an outcome.
I like that. That does make a lot of sense because, right, kind of like what you were saying before, when I would do my personal one and be like, oh, I want to get this many likes, or, oh, I'm doing my own personal podcast. I want to get this result or this amount of numbers. Why isn't this working? This was working last week. And I'm more in my head instead of like having fun and just being like, oh, I'm just putting this out there in hopes if kind of like if someone wants something funny to listen to, there you go. But yeah.
Right. So, and I love what you said. I was in my head.
Yes.
It's hard to have an open heart when you're not in your heart and when you're in your head.
Yes.
Right. So to me, by being in your head, you're automatically closing the doors. You're starting to close the door to your heart.
Right.
So then it's about dropping down into your heart and, and checking in.
I like that.
Yeah.
That is really nice. It's something new I'm working on, but
You're doing a great job.
thank you. So are you guys.
Yeah. Don't you hear him? I hear him saying it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Thank you guys so much. But yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because, sometimes I'll be like, wait, logistically, how would this work and that? And then I get two in my head and then I'm like, then I get too overwhelmed to do anything.
Right. So, and when you get in your head, have you discovered a tool to use to get out of your head?
Wow, you're just putting me on the spot over here. I guess for me, I usually have to stop and pause because if everything's moving so fast, I can't think. So I usually stop, I pause, I take a deep breath, and I'm kind of like, what is it that I want to do right now? Mm-hmm. And is it serving me right now?
Nice. I always find it funny when I hear people say they take a deep breath. I'm like, yes, but do you exhale? Or
yes,
I do. Still standing there
I actually do.
Breath?
I just inhale for like 2 minutes and then don't pass out, guys. But yes, I inhale, I exhale, I take a pause, and I usually do something else so I could shift my energy somewhere else, so that way I'm not too like in my head with it. So say if I'm like trying to write a song and I'm like, oh, I need this. Why isn't this working? Why? I'm in my head. I'm like, let me take a breath and exhale and put it away and maybe go for a walk. Maybe I need to go for a walk, or I need to eat, or I need to just do something that's not related to that so I can have clearer thinking.
Yeah. So stopping, taking the breath and releasing the breath. Like I know I find that when breathing it in and blowing it out, right? So that to me, it's almost like telling your body, all right, reset time. We're resetting.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. And then consciously thinking about dropping down into my heart and saying, all right, is this no longer resonating with me? What do I need to do? Okay. Yeah. Because then that's what's helping me leave my head, drop into my heart. And I love that you go somewhere else. You actually leave the vicinity and where you have gotten stuck. So like where you've mentally gotten stuck, whatever physical vicinity that you were in, you actually leave it.
Yes. I find it makes it easier.
Yeah, and get a new scenery. Yes. And that's a good way to begin. And there's times sometimes we can't leave the actual
Right.
physical locality. So dropping in, but to start, like if this is your first time practicing this, shifting from being all up in your head and dropping into your heart, doing just much like what Sherry said, stop, take a big deep breath and blow it out, and then go for a walk in
I love
nature
that.
or outside, or go to a different room,
Yeah.
do a different activity. And that's the first step for helping to transition from being all in your head and dropping down into your heart and
Right.
becoming a little more centered.
No, I realized that for myself because before sometimes I'd be in the same place, but then my brain's like, wait, we're in this room, so we should be doing this. We're in this area, or like a guitar's out, we should still be doing this. So by just removing it and just being like, I'm just going to sit in the living room or just take a walk or just not be where it is, my brain's like, okay, it's not here, so I don't feel as tempted to do it. if that
Well,
makes sense.
it's funny because the psychologists say, you shouldn't work in your bedroom where you sleep,
Yes. Yeah.
because then when you're going to bed, you're thinking, oh crap, I should be working.
Right.
Right.
That's a
So-
big one.
So it's kind of along those same lines. Well, thanks for bringing that topic of open heartness to us.
No
and
problem, guys.
Being able to wrap it all up into trust and open heart. I love it. That's why I was giggling at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, wait a minute, where are we going with this?
And I was like, here we go. Strap in, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember that you are bigger than anything that you are going through or anything that is happening around you.